avoidant type, I must say that fight right was a little bit triggering for me. But maybe you could talk about why that title and why now, and why of all the books you could be writing, you decided something on fighting right would be a good offering to the world.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
So the reason that we, first of all, decided to really focus in on working on conflict and trying to help couples with conflict is that out in the world, of course, as many of you are aware, we're seeing terrible polarization between factions in which people are really conceiving of the other side as the enemy. And it is so painful for us to see because there is a lack of listening, there's a lack of attention, there's a lack of compassion. And we have seen in our own research over altogether 50 years of research that everybody fights for the most part. It's a very normal process. And what we have seen is that fighting, if done well, if tools are used that really provide a basis for learning and listening to one another, can be a royal road to understanding each other, to deepening a relationship, as opposed to distancing a relationship. And so we're really thrilled to put together this material and offer it as a pathway for people to rethink how they're relating not only to the world and to different points of view out there, but also to one another in intimate and family relationships.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna jump in. So John, are you, because there's three types: avoiding, validating, and volatile. I get the sense, I have no basis for this, that you're avoiding like me. Is that
Yes,
true?
I'm an avoider.
All right.
She's a volatile.
Teamwork here.
What would you resonate as? Volatile?
Probably
Avoidant?
volatile.
Volatile. Okay, just wanted to name the
Way to go.
dynamics at play here.
And what about Julie?
We
She's
have
a
the most fun. I'm a volatile.
Oh, absolutely. And we're the most creative and yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So John, was this a topic that you came into enthusiastically, or as an avoidant, were you like, really, we got to write a book on fighting, or how was your orientation?
Well, the interesting thing is that at one time, particularly based on the research of Harold Rausch, it was believed that validating was the only way to have a relationship, and all others were, were doomed. But it turns out that all different styles and even mismatches are fine as long as that 5-to-1 ratio, positive to negative ratio, exists during conflict. And that was a big surprise.
Yeah.
And what it really means is, what the 5-to-1 ratio really means is that there's a climate of connection, even when people are disagreeing. They're nodding their heads, they're, uttering these brief vocalizations, and they're moving their facial muscles, but they're connected, and they're really, in a way, saying, even though I disagree with you, I want to hear more about what you have to say. It's interesting. So that climate of connection, even when there's disagreement, is very powerful.
Okay, so I have a question on this. One of the things that you offer is this exploration of what the underlying issue is, right? So somebody in our house might be very upset about the tahini jar not being closed all the way and leaking and whatever,
That's
and
true.
which happens
a lot.
Soren does this all the time, and I'm the clean one in the household among all of the beings. And I think we've had opportunities to apply some of this, and Soren will say, it's not really about the tahini, is it? What's really going on? And I experienced this with your guidance as an invitation to really have a little self-examination. What's really bothering me? But can you offer maybe some more creative or artful ways.
Really are pissed off about the tahini.
When that happens, I often say, well, no, it really is about the tahini. It feels almost like we're getting into the dismissing of the negative feeling
Hmm.
path instead of, an invitation to get to what's next. So what are ways that we can kind of do that a little bit more gently?
Great question. So first of all, you want to broaden a little bit what the theme is here. And the theme is being neat, tidy, clean versus perhaps operating in a different way, right?
Visionary.
Yeah, visionary. So Cecily, John and I have exactly the same thing. Where John calls himself charmingly sloppy, and I'm obsessively compulsively neat. Okay.
Feel
So
for you.
no, it's hilarious. It's funny. So anyway, but what we advise in the book, excuse me, is one of you just being a listener for a bit,
Mhm.
not bringing up your own point of view until maybe you trade roles, your partner is a speaker. And what you're trying to do, your goal is to more deeply understand where your partner is coming from regarding any particular issue and the relevant points of view about that. So the question, we call this exercise a dream within conflict exercise, dream within conflict. And it includes asking 6 very important questions. The first has to do with values, with beliefs, with ethical guidelines that may be part of your position on an issue or underlying it. The second question has to do with personal history. Do you have some childhood history or history in other relationships that may tie in to the position you have taken on your own particular point of view here?
Mhm.
3 is, why is this so important to you? What makes it such a big deal?
Yeah.
4 has to do with, well, what are your feelings about it? Emotions are always part of decisions. None of us are entirely logical. Neuroscience has shown that emotion and cognitive functioning or intellectual functioning are intertwined. You can't do decision making without both. So feelings are important to surface. The 5th question is probably the most important one, and that is, what is your ideal dream here about your position on this issue? If you could have things any way you wanted them, what would that look like?
Right.
And then finally, honey, could you get me a glass of water? I should have gotten one. The last question is goes more existential, goes even deeper. Does your position on this issue have anything to do with your own life purpose, your own sense of why you're here on this earth, in this universe, in your own kind of basis for why you're here? And sometimes even something as trivial, seemingly, as, okay, I want to make sure the jar is closed. Well, why is that so important existentially? On the surface, it doesn't look like anything. But what it could be is, well, the tahini will dry out. We won't be able to use it. We're wasting food resources. We don't want to waste food resources. We want to conserve. We know people are starving. We don't want to throw away food that we don't need to throw away. We want to value what we're given, etc. So there can be some real depth in even the most trivial of issues, as long as you dive deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And I love that, because I think I can remember a couple of cases where something like that has happened, and then we end up, even with just a couple questions, getting to, oh, it feels like disrespect. Why is that
Mm,
sensitive to me?
Mhm.
Like,
mhm.
and then we can sort of explore what that is, and it ends up being an opening instead of just a fix it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and one of the
Cool.
parts I really liked about the book was the dream, and I wondered if you both could talk a little bit about like allowing a partner to be in the dream that you have and what that dream means, and how do we clarify the dream to ourselves first and foremost about what is our dream,
Mhm.
and how do we communicate with those that we love, whether it's a partner, a friend, or close person, so that there's some alignment on a dream. So
And sometimes
talk
it's
about dreams.
avoiding a nightmare.
Is it the nightmare?
Yeah, avoiding a nightmare is,
Avoiding the nightmare.
yeah, rather than it being a dream, there may be some catastrophic fears
Uh-huh.
that underlie somebody's position on an issue. That
And it
was,
could be
or
that this life, or it could be generational trauma that they
could
experience,
be, yes,
passed down through
exactly. Yeah,
generations, that it's just like, this might happen, we better avoid it at all costs.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Could you
true
talk a
for,
little bit about processing that, or what someone does to clear that or be more attentive to that?
well, I think the questions really go a long way toward giving people the space to explore, why this is so important, why their position is so important to them.
Mhm.
So contrary to other kinds of beliefs that really characterize uncompromising people as narcissistic or borderline or
Mm,
uh, manic depressive or something, some pejorative, we're really saying that when people don't compromise, it's because there's something very core that they need, that
mm,
something they respect about themselves or value about themselves, that if they tried to compromise on that, it would be like giving up the bones of who they are. So they're selling themselves out when they compromise. That's what the feeling was.
mhm,
So in a way, the questions get at the bones of who you are. And, it's specific to one issue, but
yeah,
over time, it really helps you understand who your partner is and what your
mhm,
partner's struggles are.
Mhm.
mhm,
Mhm.
yeah.
I think, let me just add a little bit to that, because part of the question is, well, gosh, how do we even identify what our dream is?
Right.
Regarding any particular issue, which is a hard thing
Yeah.
because it takes internal reflection, and so many of us are consumed with what's external out there. And certainly viewing external reality as we see it is very important too. That sometimes fuels social activism, which is very important, to really be conceiving, oh my God, can we have a better world out there? How are we going to create that? But at the same time, we shouldn't disregard what lies within us in terms of, okay, I've been given these gifts, I've been given these challenges, I've been given incredible blessings,
Mhm.
just
Mhm,
living in a country where, for the most part, I have enough to eat. I've got a roof. I've got, not living in a tent. Uh, Not yet, anyway, And um, so what do I want to provide to the world? Well, that depends on who I am and what I can give that also energizes myself.
mm,
So
mhm,
it's both sides.
yeah,
There are many people these days who are fabulously helpful out there, really doing incredible work, but they're burning out. They're exhausting themselves. They're burning out. They're not caring for themselves. They, nonstop, do not rest, do not revitalize. And I really mean that word, revitalize, bring back life to yourself so
Mm.
so it can become a cycle, a
Mhm.
mhm,
circle
Mhm.
of taking in energy from however, whatever energizes you, and then turning and bringing that energy back out into the world.
Yeah, we were kind of shocked when we did a survey of over 40,000 couples who were about to start couples therapy. 80% of them said that fun had come to die in their relationship.
Wow.
They just
Oh.
weren't having any fun together and adventure together.
Yeah.
So, people have written about, the sexless marriage. But what happens a lot of times is when life degenerates to this very long to-do list,
Yeah.
we wind up shutting ourselves down sensually to the world.
Yeah.
Sexually, we don't play
Yeah.
the way children play, and we don't have adventures the way, we used to when we were courting one another.
Yeah.
Revitalizing is a great word.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
And
And
can I imagine?
yeah, you mentioned, Cecily, you mentioned respect, and I think that knowing your partner's dreams and nightmares is
Mhm.
really the ultimate kind of respect that you can pay to your partner. Really
Yeah.
understanding what moves them and what, makes them really have strong emotions about something.
Mhm. And also what's fun for them.
Right.
And it might be different for different people. And I also want to explore a little bit this notion of the significance of fun as a language or way of communicating between people. I imagine this also cascades well into family relationships,
Mhm.
work relationships, community relationships. I know we see this a lot right now. It's kind of a busy time of year and lots happening. And I think we can all get sort of stuck in our taskiness. And I would imagine that bringing fun into all of those contexts is healing in a variety of ways. It helps the
Yeah.
relationship thrive.
Mm. John, why don't you tell that story about,
Yeah.
we read each other's minds all the time.
Yeah. So that there was a couple who, were functioning very well, and they had one child. She was 8 years old, but they didn't feel like were in love with each other anymore, and they kind of felt indifferent to one another. They were good managers of life and the relationship, but they thought, because they were sort of in midlife, they thought there was more to life than this, and they thought they really should get a divorce, separate, at least separate. And they went to couples therapy, and the therapist intuitively said, what I want you to do this weekend is go out in the backyard and have a mud fight. Get your hose and
This was not you. This was not you suggesting
no,
this. This was their own there. Okay.
Wow.
and so and they were, very tidy people. They were really to do that. And finally their 8-year-old daughter said, look, let's just try it. And so they all did this, and you got the hose out, and it was spring, and they made this big mud pile, and they put on old clothes, and they started fighting with the mud and throwing mud at each other, and they just started laughing and laughing and laughing. And all three of them were dissolved in laughter, and they were just covered with mud. And they realized that they had shut down so much
Wow.
else in coping with life that, suddenly, they had all these feelings for one another. And that night they made love, and they said,
After
what,
taking a shower.
what did we do? What did we do to cut all this out of our world? All this laughter and joy.
That's so sweet.
Just got
I have to share a
just out.
story about this.
Everyone's getting cold water plunges and saunas. Maybe we just need
We
mud
need
mud
mud
mud baths.
I have to tell you both, I'm so glad you just told that story because I read it in your previous book, and I actually had a moment of a lot of tension with one of my sons a year and a half ago. And we happened to be away, and that story was in my mind. And we actually went and found a mud pile at a beach near where we were staying. And we didn't have a mud fight, but we fully covered ourselves with mud. And within an hour of that that experience, my son and I had this totally relationship transforming conversation.
Wow.
So I just want to note it impacts not only intimate relationships, but that kind of like breaking your usual way of communicating can unlock so much. It's
Right.
amazing.
So
Thank you for
anybody
that.
can do it.
Anyone can do
Can
it.
do it.
Yeah.
I know that there's a lot we want to explore, but one of the things I want to explore, I know there's a TED Talk coming out which might address some of this. And actually, by the time somebody's watching this, it might already be out, but it's coming out soon if you're watching it today. Is, you know, the conflict that's both in our marriages and relationships and close people is one thing, and then we have this larger conflict that is in our cultures often, and particularly as presidential elections kind of emerge and very different candidates that have different expressions emerge. You know, it's hard as a human being to kind of watch the dynamics play out, and media sometimes doesn't help at all because they demonize this person, or can you believe what that person said, and try to get clicks on this story or that story. And I worry about, particularly in the US, like more and more just hatred between different people for their different views. And then as that tightens, that just increases the intensity of each person's views. And I'm wondering, as you look at the world today and navigate how you see the challenges of kind of this larger global culture, what are your thoughts on questions we need to be asking, inquiries we need to be making, practices that maybe we can all put into place as we try to see if we can mitigate some of this movement towards more and more division and more kind of separation, while still standing for a point of view and standing for our own values?
Yeah. You know, we were just eating dinner with two of our best friends last night and just talking about this very subject. And, you know, trying to figure out how, you know, what's missing when so much hatred exists in the world. And one of the things that we were thinking, you know, we're seeing a lot of protesting on campuses, for example, now, and John and I being Jewish and seeing anti-Semitism, you know, just flying high all over the world, including here, as well as, you know, being sympathetic to the Gazan plight, the plight of the Gazan people. And, you know, it's just horrendous. What's missing is really understanding the whole picture. You know, people again are taking such a superficial look at each side's cause without understanding the history, without understanding the detail. The media, as you pointed out, Soren, you know, really distorts things one direction or another. Why are they doing that? Do they do it because they believe you know, in their position? No, they're doing it to garner more Nielsen ratings, right? You know, on their entertaining TV show. So there's a lot we don't know and we don't understand. And we, while we were giving our TED Talk, there, of course, were a number of other TED speakers just last month. There was a pair of men that were so moving and beautiful to me, and they really exemplified, I think, what the world needs more of. One was Palestinian, one was Israeli. The Israeli had lost both his parents on October 7th. They'd been in one of the border communities that had been attacked by Hamas. The other fellow, the Palestinian, had lost many members, like 14 members of his family throughout, you know, the last decade. And yet these two became incredibly close friends. And how did they do that? Well, at first, they just argued. They were both in the same industry, so they met each other often, and began having coffees, and they would argue and argue and argue. But then, as the arguments, like, okay, enough already, they started asking each other questions. Help me understand, what is it like to be an Arab living in Israel? What is your experience of that? what lack of respect are you experiencing by the Israeli people around you? Same thing for the Israelis, saying what, the Palestinian asked, what kind of threat do you feel every minute of every day as you're living in as an Israeli citizen?
Yeah.
What's that like? And what was it like before 1948?
Mhm.
And we go into the Holocaust and 2,000 years of persecution. So, there's such a lack of knowledge. It blows my mind. And so I think one of the things that is really fundamentally needed is for people to step out of their own shoes and step into the shoes of quote unquote their enemy.
Mhm.
Just ask, can you help me understand how you've arrived at this situation, at this position?
Mhm.
Help me understand it and don't counter it. Don't say, well, no, that's wrong. No, that's a lie. Mm-mm. Just listen. And in particular, listen to the emotions,
Mhm.
listen to the losses,
Mhm.
listen to the grief, listen to the pain, because it's not about the facts per se. It's about the soul and what that soul has suffered
Mhm.
opens them to perhaps hearing things that may not be 100% true and clamping onto them as, okay, that's my truth. It's
Mhm.
coming from pain. So
Mhm.
let's listen to each other's pain, not just argue.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that really helped me was reading a book by Colin Woodard called American Nations. Woodard is Woodard. And what he shows is that the United States was always formed by about 11 different cultures. And the concepts of freedom were totally different in Appalachian America than in Northeastern America or Southern America or Midwestern America and eventually Western America and the influence of Mexican culture as well. So you have all these different concepts that went into forming this Constitution that we have. And it's very imperfect democracy that we have because every culture had a different idea of what freedom meant and what government meant and what what just basic ideas like liberty and dignity of the individual and sacrificing for the group, all those kinds of things. So we really have so many different cultures in this country now, and we need to really think about who we're talking to when we talk to Northern American. And we use words like freedom and security and prominence and influence and importance in the world, because those have so many different meanings to different people. And I think Julie's right. We've kind of shut ourselves off from really listening to our fellow citizen who has, very, very good intentions
Yeah.
and very good dreams and very good hopes and wishes. And, we're not one culture, we're so many cultures.
Yeah. And this is, I mean, so much of your work translates easily from macro to micro, micro back to macro. I love it that your research and your work in working in intimate relationships informs this kind of commitment to curiosity and understanding differences. It's really the same thing. I'm wondering if one or both of you could speak to what is that language of intentional or compassionate inquiry, starting from a place of curiosity, look like in a relationship? So not just across lines in war zones or ideological differences in our nation, but it feels like your work is very much around what happens in the kitchen also. Like,
Yeah.
what does that look like at home?
Yeah, these small moments, I think that's a lot of what our researchers have revealed and sort of doing microanalyses of moment-to-moment communication. There are small moments when our partner is really reaching out for connection. and where we can really just say, what's going on for you? What's on your heart and mind right now?
Mhm.
And, just stop, and really connect at, having some pastry and coffee together in the morning, or, cuddling on the couch at night when you're watching British people getting murdered, uh, and just taking that time to really connect with one another in these small moments.
Yeah.
That keeps curiosity alive, because this
Yeah.
person you're with they don't have the same mind you do, and they're very different.
Let me give you an example. Give you an example of this. So, um, as our theory describes, basically it's called the sound relationship house, and there are 7 floors or levels to the house and 2 walls: trust and commitment. But the bottom level is what we call build love maps. So what are love maps? So love maps are really mapping out the internal landscape of who your partner is. That's where that term comes from.
Mm.
So, you may recall when you were first dating or first getting to know one another, you asked a lot of questions. You might ask, so why did you choose that line of work? Or how did you end up in this place of living? Or, I don't know, who's your favorite ball team or something? And then we get busy in our relationships and we stop asking questions. But, the reality is that through time, we're experiencing life, we're experiencing, formulating our own history, we're witnessing changes in our environment and the culture. And all of that is producing change in us. It's producing evolution in us day to day, moment to moment, actually. So, do we continue to ask each other questions in order to stay in tune with our partner who is changing, who is transforming? I forget how the numbers of this, but there's something like every, is it 1 to 2 days, we replace all of the cells in our body, or, through duplication and mitosis and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, the reality is that we're becoming different people every day.
Yeah.
So we have to stay in tune. We have to ask each other questions every now and then to carve out time. So John and I created a little exercise called open-ended questions that is part of a set of 14 free apps that we have online that people can access, including a whole series of open-ended questions to ask your partner if you don't know where to get started. And the way we came up with even the thought that this was needed is when John and I were not making much money back in the old days. For a date, we would go to this gorgeous hotel in Seattle that had the most beautiful, it was like my ideal design. It was so cool. The lobby had a big stone fireplace, a fantastic fire was always burning, even in the summer, because it's always cold. And there were beautiful soft couches you would sink into around the fireplace. So John and I would go to this hotel, claim a couch, and pretend we were guests. And we would buy, 1 drink of something, and we would nurse the drink, we would ask each other these big open-ended questions for several hours and answer the questions and then go home. That was our date. And John would always bring a yellow notepad and he would take notes on my answers, which meant I had to really be careful about how I answered these questions because they might appear in a book someday. So
Such a researcher. Yeah.
Yeah, if people want to get
great.
these card decks, if they go to the App Store and type in Gottman card decks,
Okay, great.
download this app for free. And there are 14 card decks. There's
I just
expressing your needs, for the week. 100 questions you can ask a man about his erotic world. 100 questions you
Wow.
can ask a woman about her erotic world.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, there are all kinds of different card decks, fun and
Beautiful.
play and all kinds of things.
Beautiful. All right,
And
that's another
free.
takeaway, mud fighting
Yep.
and the card decks and inquiry.
Open-ended questions.
Yeah,
I know there's some couples here too, and we want to have a little bit of time for questions, so you can raise your hand if you want to ask a question. And I love the quote from both of you that says, spending a few minutes each day becoming curious about your partner is better for your health and longevity than going to the gym or running 5 miles a day or something. Like the impact, not that we have to be
Yeah.
selfish about it, but like the impact on our nervous systems, on our state of mind when there's a connection with the partner versus a disconnection with our partner.
right.
Like we spend so much time investing our money or where we put our in the stock market. Like how much time do we actually invest in creating more of a quality connection? And just a deep bow to you for all your work with that. We're going to keep asking questions. If nobody
Yeah.
raises their hand, that's fine.
Yeah.
It can be a little intimate to bring things in, we understand. So feel free to raise your hand. If not, we will.
Yeah,
just
and
get-
you don't have to be a couple either. I think there was a.
yeah, you don't have to be a
Any-
couple either.
Anybody asked that?
I had one other question if you wanted to share a little bit about, as an avoidant, when I saw the book, title Fight Right, I noticed myself like get like this. And
Yeah.
even when Cecily says to me, Soren, there's something I wanted to talk to you about, my initial response
Yeah.
is like danger, like
Sad.
danger. And I'm curious, and maybe you could both speak a little bit about how you work with those energies, those tendencies,
Mhm.
whether to go towards, to go away.
Yeah.
And I still have this voice sometimes in my head that's just like, this is not safe. And she's stupid and she's an idiot. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Like, it's just like this protective.
Yeah, can I tell you about my invention?
Yeah, sure.
I
Yeah.
have this invention. It's a little tiny booklet
Okay.
that I keep in my back pocket and a
Okay.
pen.
I have a big booklet.
Okay, well, so get one of these and put it in your purse or back pocket. And then when your partner says, we need to talk, or you see your partner looking, grumpy or, unhappy, take out your little book and say, talk to me. I'm taking
Okay.
notes. I
Okay.
want to know what's on your mind and heart. And you get
Alright.
the book and
Okay.
you write down what your partner's saying. And the
Okay.
more defensive you feel, like
Yeah.
at the moment, the more you slow your partner down to write down everything they're saying.
Wow. Okay.
And it helps me not be defensive. So I go,
Interesting.
oh, God, she's such a crab, man. And I go, and I'm writing, I go, well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. I need to understand that better. So this is my invention, and
That's beautiful.
it costs almost nothing. And it has this huge impact when you're
Yeah.
writing down what your partner's saying on you,
Beautiful.
and your partner's going, he wants to know
Yeah,
it's
what I'm
really
thinking.
listening.
Yeah.
That's great.
I love it.
I love that too.
Okay.
Simple.
Do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. We have
Mention their name, but
a question in the chat. How to deal with a partner's blame and gaslighting during a fight?
Alrighty, so first of all, let me just mention that the word gaslighting, we've seen, has become extremely popular and it's being defined wrong. And I don't know how this person is defining it, but let me just be really clear. When a person has their own perspective on something that's really different than yours, that is not gaslighting at all.
Yeah.
Gaslighting actually means purposely presenting, convincing your partner of an artificial reality that has nothing to do with your perspective. It has to do with trying to make your partner feel crazy by presenting them with a fake fantasy of a moment in reality that didn't happen, and they don't think happened, but you're trying to convince them it did happen.
Got it.
That's gaslighting. It comes from a movie made, I don't know, in the 50s or something. But anyway,
Ingrid Bergman.
Ingrid Bergman, so great. So let's first of all differentiate. When your partner is blaming you and coming at that from their own point of view, all right. The problem there, what they're doing that needs to change is the blame. It's okay for them to have their own point of view. That's fine. We all have different realities. There is no absolute truth or absolute reality. Everything is about perception. You've got your pair of eyes and ears. I've got mine. They're different. We have different brains. So when a person is blaming, though, that feels attacking, it feels critical, it could even feel contemptuous, which is terribly destructive for a relationship. So there is a simple repair you can make. Very, very simple. It goes like this. Instead of going defensive, which is what you want to do, you say, I'm feeling defensive. Can you please say that another way? I'm feeling defensive, which is true.
Yeah.
You say that another way. And
Right.
the proper way for people to voice their own opinions or their own feelings or thoughts about something is with a lot of I statements. So we have kind of a formula for that we didn't invent. We saw it in the successful couples of the 3,000 couples we studied second by second over 20 years of time. What they did is they would start with, I feel something. I feel an emotion. And you can't cheat and say, I feel that you are an idiot.
Right.
So it has to be, I feel angry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel worried. I feel
Yeah.
stressed. I feel upset, whatever it is. About what? What's the situation? You're not pointing out a character flaw of the partner.
Yeah.
You're relating to a situation. For example, I feel upset that the bills haven't been paid yet. I feel worried that there's a new dent in the car. I feel angry that the kitchen is a mess. Those are all situations. They're all facts and situations. You're not pointing like this at your partner. The third thing to say, God bless you, love, is to say what your positive need is. And what's a positive need? A positive need means, how can your partner shine for you? What do you want them to do as opposed to what do you want them to stop doing?
Yeah, that's great.
Which is a negative need. So I feel about what, and here's my positive needs.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah. How do you discern the difference between your partner's anxious attachment and being empathetic about it versus seeing signs of possessiveness?
Oh, God, what a great question. Okay, first of all, I have to get a drink of water. Okay, so they're basically the same thing in a way. Possessiveness has gotten a bad rap.
Okay.
Possessiveness means I really need your commitment to me. I need you to show your love of me because I'm so insecure. What lies beneath anxious attachment is I'm not worthy of anybody wanting me. I'm not worthy of that.
Yeah.
I'm a schmuck, I'm no good. I learned that from the day I was born. And, there's lots of trauma attached sometimes. And so I'm really, really afraid. There's so much fear. That's what anxiety relates to. There's so much fear beneath anxious attachment. and the belief that you're not wanted. So when John, I've got plenty of that anxious attachment. So when John says to me, "You're the only one I want, baby, I just love you, you're the only woman for me," etc., etc. Wow, what a feeling.
Mhm.
You can call John's expression of all that possessiveness. You can call me wanting that my being possessive, but bottom line, it comes down to commitment
Mhm.
that I want you to accompany through our journey of life together. I don't want anybody else as my lover, my partner. I want you. So what's wrong with that? We've had a lot of very, very, very bad teaching out there
Yeah.
about you have to be your own self. You have to love yourself before you can love somebody else. If that were the case, none of us would be married. Forget it. Everybody has, a little bit of insecurity.
Yeah.
You have to not lean on each other. Wrong. We are pack animals. We
Yeah.
need each other.
Yeah.
That's how we survive. We are pack animals biologically. We
Yeah.
don't survive alone.
Yeah.
And the research shows that. So don't worry about it. It's okay.
Yeah.
Be empathetic.
Yeah,
And-
David Buss has David Buss has written about this, BUSS, about how jealousy is not pathological. It really comes with the territory of loving someone. You really get that from caring that much, and
Mhm.
and to pathologize it is really a mistake.
And so if somebody is like, I don't want you to go have, I don't know, lunch with this person because I'm not comfortable with that, would the
Yeah.
response be, or I don't want you to leave town because you might meet somebody else somewhere, I don't know, whatever.
Right.
To really become curious about that and to share your commitment to them, and that might be the answer, not whatever.
Yeah, and find out what their catastrophic expectations are about,
Right.
They're
Yeah.
not
and honor that, and then make them feel safe. Of course, you can go too far with any of these
Sure.
things, like,
Yeah.
and so we
Yeah.
talk about pit bulls who are violent men who, always imagine treachery
Yeah.
and try to control their partner's every movements, and that's kind of nuts.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
as David
Yeah.
Buss points out, when you love somebody, they're yours, and you want to protect that.
Yeah. Well, Krista's on video then.
Okay. Thank you for that. Krista, we see your hand. We've just asked you to unmute.
Hi, Krista.
Hi, thank you so much.
Welcome.
John and Julie, really wonderful to have the opportunity to speak to you all. I've actually been in couples counseling with my partner, and we've been reading the Seven Principles book.
Great.
So really
Thank
quite
you.
quite an opportunity to be with you guys. And
Good.
yeah, I have a million questions, but the one that I'd love to hear from you all on is how to strike the balance in relationship between absolutely loving and accepting and celebrating who your partner presently is, while simultaneously feeling a drive for them to grow and improve and change and pursue their dreams and all of that. And yeah, how to hold that space for that in between, because it feels slippery.
It
And are
really,
you still trying to get John to reach his potential? And is John still trying to get you to reach your potential?
yeah, his potential of tidiness and cleanliness. Yeah. John and I have a hilarious little magnet that we found in a store, which says something like, "I love you more and more every single day." Yeah, but actually yesterday you were sort of annoying. And the day before that, you were driving me nuts. It was just like, oh God.
Amazing.
Ain't it the truth? Ain't it the truth? So first of all, we all realize, and I'm sure you do too, that we have no control over, and we shouldn't have any control right? Over who our partner is and how they decide to grow or not grow or, you know, whatever. And yeah, sure. I mean, you want your partner to change in some ways. We all do. Because, you know, we're not, nobody's perfect, including our partners. And I'm so glad to hear, you know, your love, your acceptance, your empathy, your compassion, and so on. And so wanting them to grow more, etc. Look at that carefully within yourself, right? So first of all, you don't want a clone. You don't want somebody to be more like you, because if they get to be more like you, you'll be bored out of your mind. Woody Allen demonstrated that a long time ago in one of his movies, if I dare say that name. Secondly, I like to think about how people grow. And I compare people to trees. Trees are very seasonal, right? And in the winter, you see nothing from the ground up. You see no change. You may see death, you know, in terms of leaves falling and the tree becoming bare, naked branches. But there's growth underground. The root system is growing. The roots are going deeper. The roots are tapping into different nutrients and fluids, water. And you know, I don't know if I've ever seen somebody throughout the course of a life who didn't grow somehow, right? So just imagine, okay, this is my partner's time of winter when perhaps they're tapping deep down. They don't even see it in themselves, but just day-to-day life will do that for you, give you places to, you know, things to think about, different perceptions of things, different feelings, experiences. And keep in mind that the more, for example, if you over fertilize a tree in the winter, you're going to kill it because it can't absorb it, right?
Yeah.
So back away, allow life to unfold in your partner and see what happens. Just see what happens. And surely your love is that's the taproot for your partner. That's the taproot. That's giving your partner the most nourishment that they need to eventually manifest themselves. So just keep loving and don't worry about the lack of change. It's seasonal.
It's
Great.
beautiful. We are
Thank you, Krista.
yeah, we do have more questions, but we're also down to 2 minutes. We happen to have one question which also connects with something we really wanted to give you a minute to speak to anyway, which has to do with how your offerings are allowing scaling of your work. So how do people of different socioeconomic background status do this type of work or grow in these ways that you're offering wisdom around, if they can attend retreats, or if maybe some of the ways that you're speaking.
And
to
one
Karen
way is to
about
buy
are
the book,
practical.
of course. So
Yeah.
Fight Right is excellent. Highly recommend it. But other ways would be great.
You guys have other tools coming online too.
Yes, we do. So thanks for that question. What we have done is we've built a sister company that's now merged with the Gottman Institute. And that sister company has put all of our relationship assessment tools and all of our interventions into an app called Gottman Connect that you can access through your phone as an app or through through a computer, through an iPad, and so on. And John and I God, we made 87 little teeny videos, little 2 to 3 minute
Wow.
videos that go with every single intervention or exercise you can do to strengthen your relationship.
Mm.
Including how to do something and how not to do something. And the not to do's we were really good at because we've had so much practice
Doing it wrong.
doing it wrong. So, if you do the assessment piece of it, the assessments, some of them are straight out of the lab, it's amazing. Then you immediately, within seconds with our algorithms, get recommendations for what you need to strengthen in your relationship with links to the exact exercises to do that will help you to strengthen those particular characteristics of your relationship.
Beautiful.
That's called Gottman Connect, and it's much cheaper than going to therapy.
You can do it in the privacy of your home.
Yeah, right. You
And
can
that's just available on the App Store or any of the
No, it's
platforms?
available on this platform, Gottman Connect.
Yeah, it's on
Gottman
a
Connect. Got it.
platform.
Yeah, you
Gottman
have been so generous with your free online resources, and I think free and also not free, but you have so much available, your decades of life's work. So I know we're leaving at least a half a dozen questions unanswered here on things like conflict resolution and compromise in spending and compromise in talking and all of these things. We encourage folks to go look at what you've made available to them, even if we can't ask you live. And just thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you
you.
so much for
Thank
your work in
you.
the world.
And if you have questions about compromise, the book gives you a whole
Yes.
structure for how to reach compromise.
Right.
That's very cool about anything, even cleanliness.
Even cleanliness.
So we're gonna let everybody unmute here. So, and we can just say some blessings and goodbyes. Any and all languages are welcome. So just go to gallery view. Thank you so much. Domo arigato gozaimasu. Grazie mille.
Thank you.
So much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
everyone.
Blessings.
Thank you.
Blessings. Bye. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye.
Ciao. Ciao. Ciao, bellas.
Love one another.
You for your honesty.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Doodles.
Bye-bye.